Storytelling is this elusive word that gets thrown around a lot in life and especially filmmaking. You have to tell a better story. You need to be a better storyteller. Story first. And while I believe all those things, sometimes it's tough to understand what does that word mean and what does it practically look like in our filmmaking. Well, in this video, not only am I going to define storytelling as a subject, but we're going to go through every stage of making your film and how you can focus on storytelling and tell the best story. This is practical advice all the way down to what to put in your films, what to take out, and how to approach what to actually film on set. This will be a masterclass. That word gets thrown around a lot, but this will undoubtedly be the biggest, longest YouTube video I've ever done. And it's something that you can just move through as you need to, as you're working on your film. And it's a small glimpse of what we offer inside the Art of Documentary. That's our course and academy, which is 7 courses, over 500 videos, over 8,500 filmmakers from all around the world. It's the place where you can grow as a storyteller for years to come. So let's jump into this. I want to just go over what we're going to cover. The first is we're actually going to establish what a story is and what that means. Then I'm going to tell you what a story isn't. It's important to know what it isn't so that you don't go make that. Thirdly, we're going to talk about 3 things that every story needs. These are irrefutable aspects that you're going to be filming, or even if you're just telling a story or a wedding speech, however you're communicating an event, person, or topic, you need these 3 things. Then fourthly, we're going to talk about the breakdown, what your timeline in your film should look like if you're actually telling a story. And lastly, we're going to finish off with 3 questions before you hit export on your film that you can ask your edit, your movie, and figure out, do I have the right footage in my film? And perhaps what do I need to take out? So let's jump into this. This is building a story from scratch. Let's first define what a story is. And it can be summarized in one single word, and that's desire. Every film has a desire. That can be what someone wants. That can be a goal that someone has in their life. It can look at what they might need, something that they don't have that they need internally. Maybe that's that they're looking for peace. They've never been approved by their father or their parents, and they're looking for someone to look in their face and say, I'm proud of you. That can be a need that someone wants. Or lastly, because I know a lot of people work on films that don't have main characters, which is a risk, but you can still tell a story with that. But you have to treat your film as a question. What question is your film asking? Now, before we move on, I know a lot of people start thinking, oh, this can't apply to what I'm working on. I work on reels, or I shoot little vignettes for clients or testimonial videos. But all of these aspects can and should be applied all the way down to a 60-second reel you're making on Instagram, all the way up to a 60-minute film you're releasing on Netflix. If you don't have a character who wants something, if you can't identify their goal, or you don't know what someone needs, then your film is asking a question. It can be, does this product help the client? Or do you know how to solve this problem in your life? Well, here's a product that can. I will always be able to tell you where the story is in the content you're making, even if it's just some humorous reel that you're making for your Instagram. So let's first, though, define what a story isn't. We call this the topic versus story debate. A topic is information. Story is not just a series of ideas or facts about something. A story is a movement from one state to another. It's pursuing a goal. Again, it's that word desire. Desire means you want something that currently you don't have, or perhaps it's something you already do have, but you want more of it. I've been working on a film with Chris Bumstead, and his desire is to win his Olympia title, his 6th one. But there's needs that we begin to reveal throughout that film that Chris is discovering. So there's multiple layers into what this character wants. Whenever I make a film, I always come back to that word, asking, what does this film desire? But more importantly, what does my character desire? Inside of Art of Documentary, I get hundreds of filmmakers bringing me their story ideas every year, talking about them. We have live feedback calls, or we have our monthly industry expert calls. We have our Facebook group, and you're getting to see people wrestle through ideas. And where most people make the mistake right off the hop is they think they're telling a story, but what they're actually doing is identifying a topic. So for an example, you want to make a film about poverty in Toronto. Well, that is not a story. That is a topic. Now, you can make a story about that topic, and that perhaps could be a single mother starting a business to help lift her family out of poverty. We are now telling a story about poverty, but what we're actually doing is telling a story, not just listing facts. The risk that most filmmakers make, or the mistake rather, is when they go to create their film, they sit down and interview people from an organization or who are experts about a certain topic, and they just ramble off facts or talk about past events. And the filmmaker shows a bunch of different angles of that person talking and then some random B-roll. I call this a moving Wikipedia page. You're adding images to just information. And at that point, I'd rather just go read the Wikipedia about what you're talking about. That is not filmmaking. That is not storytelling. That is an informational video, and those do need to exist. But don't fool yourself that you're telling a story. I think of AOD co-founder Mike's film, His Name is Ray. This is absolutely a fantastic story and a tough one about the fentanyl crisis. Never is there an expert rambling off facts about this, but rather we're following one individual wrestling with his addiction and trying to return back to the peace he once had on the water. That is a true story about drug addiction. It's not a series of facts. There's a quote I've heard that is, 1 million people dying is just a stat, but one person's death is a tragedy. That is a real story. Tell the one person's story and it will illuminate what millions of people have experienced. So remember this, a topic is what's the film about. The story, well, that's what happens. And that's what we want to explore. 3 things that all stories have. Write these 3 words down. We have them highlighted here. A story is a character who wants something, who faces obstacles to getting it, and is changed by the experience. If you don't have a main character, the audience simply becomes the main character. You pose a question about the topic you're exploring. Now the audience wants to know the answer to that question. It can be the survival of an animal, the survival of the planet, what's going to happen to a certain culture. Then you need to show the obstacles in the way of that goal. Then you explore how the person is changed by the experience. This is the hack, is find one person and follow them, and that will tell the story. You can't have films about multiple characters. We talk about this extensively in AOD. We have whole videos about using multiple characters to tell one story. But a good film will always explore the change at the end. But we're going to break this down really simply in this video about what that timeline looks like with these 3 elements. So write that down. Want, obstacle, change. There's your film. Act 1, 2, and 3. Breaking this down practically, go watch a film like Free Solo. The topic is about free climbing, but the story is about Alex Honnold's quest to perform the first ever free solo climb at El Capitan. That is a desire. That is what you are putting in your one sentence about your film. If you can't explain your story in one sentence, you don't actually know your story, and you're going to make a scattered film, shoot random footage, and have a lot of pain in the edit. I know this because I've been there too many times in the past. And it's why I approach my films with this simple, assertive storytelling system. But every story actually has 2 layers, and most people miss out on the second layer. They just focus on the first. These 2 layers of a film are 2 different stories. One is the physical journey, and the other is the emotional journey. For Alex Honnold in Free Solo, his physical journey is simply him climbing El Capitan without ropes. His journey is from the bottom to the top. Very simple. But if that's all we told, we would just make a film that rock climbers would be interested in. It wouldn't connect with a broader audience who has no interest in rock climbing. How do you make a film that reaches a broader audience than just a niche group of people? Well, this is where we have to focus on the emotional journey. This is where all the great filmmakers explore deep into their characters. They don't just make it a film that is a car chase. There are other things at stake. And you could say, and what's fun with the emotional journey is the audience sometimes gets to determine this, is for Alex in this film, it's him trying to master fear so thoroughly that he removes the need for anyone else. That is his emotional journey. That is what he's trying to answer is, do I need anyone? Can I just do everything in life on my own? And you begin to see the film incorporating his friends and his partner in the film. And you see that he does need people. He may not need ropes, but absolutely, these are the foundation and bedrock to his success. My film I've been making, and you've heard me talk about it a lot, it's called The Standard. There's 2 journeys in this. Chris Bumstead, our main character, has a physical journey, and that's him training to win his 6th Olympia title. But there's an emotional journey. He's trying to figure out if he can be the best in the world without sacrificing the relationships he cherishes most. Often, your emotional journey in your film might sound a bit like a cliche, but cliches exist because they're things that we come back to often. To break this down even more simple, a physical journey is a want. It's the external. It's what's happening on the outside. But the emotional journey, this is the internal. This is discovering a need. What does Chris actually need? Well, he needs to find peace, that winning does not define his identity. That is the need. That's what's happening on the inside. So how do we structure a story? How do we take these ideas of physical journeys and emotional journeys and topics for stories? How do we place that in a timeline? Well, we're going to come back to those words we spoke about earlier. Desire, obstacle, resolution, or change. The 3 things every good story needs is a character with a clear desire. Again, not a topic, not a theme, a person who wants something specific. So if you're making your movie, write down your character's name and write down their desire. If you're making a film about someone doing high rocks, they want to finish the race. That's great. They want to get the best time. Then also write down their emotional journey. For you as a filmmaker, this is where trust is so important. This is where we're always teaching an art of documentary about how to build that trust, how to bring your characters in on the vision of your film, and how to make them almost a co-director of the film so that they feel comfortable opening up to you. It's about earning trust, and trust also comes with having a vision. If you're not specific about the film you're making, people begin to be suspicious that you're not going to complete the film or that it's going to be a bit of an ambiguous piece of art, and they lose faith in your vision. And this is usually where someone wants to leave the filmmaking process and they begin pushing you away. So this is why it's good to have these goals as a filmmaker. Know the film you want to make, or else you won't make a strong story. Secondly, this is very, very important. We need to explore obstacles that create real uncertainty. You'll hear me talk about this later, but uncertainty is currency. If we know too early in your film that your subject is going to complete their task, there's no uncertainty. And in turn, we stop caring. We don't need to watch the end of the film because we already know they're going to complete their goal. That currency I talk about is you buying back your audience's attention. You'll hear people telling you all the time that you need to start with a hook on your reel and you need flashy transitions and get better lenses, get better color grading. All of this, that's secondary. If you don't have uncertainty in your film, people will turn it off. That is what makes a good film. I've consulted with some pretty big YouTubers on films they're trying to make, and I watched this mistake happen. They put all the resolution in the first 1 minute of their film. They'll literally have their character explain how they've changed and how they've come to peace with the idea. I don't need to watch the rest of the film at that point because I've heard it in the first minute. Spoiler alert, everyone knows Chris won his 6th Olympia title. But if you watch our film, the film does not treat it as if you do know that. And that's what's fun. Lastly, you need a resolution that answers the film's core question. More so, I would say this is answering the emotional need of your character. What is it going on in the inside? And sometimes the answer can be, we don't know. This is the tragedy in doing documentaries, is you'll explore someone's life, they'll go through so much, and they won't learn their lesson at the end of the day. That's powerful. That's life. Life can be tragic. We can see someone go through tough events and they don't learn their lesson. And you have to be brave as a filmmaker to explore this. And that's why you need to know your character's emotional journey, because you won't know how to end the film if you haven't identified that. There's quick examples of this. Take a screen grab of how I've broken down 20 Feet of Stardom here and go watch the film. You'll see the characters, what they want. You'll see their desire. You'll see the obstacles that they've gone through, and you'll see them ask their core question. This happens even with scripted films. Of course, they follow the same principles. You need to have a main character, Andrew, a young jazz musician. You need to have a desire. He wants to be one of the greats at any cost. The obstacle, he has a mentor who's cruel and has really bizarre teaching methods. And Andrew's obsession is also consuming his humanity. These are the obstacles. The fact that Andrew will get out of a car crash and go play. And the core question, is greatness worth destroying yourself? You'll see a lot of films explore that topic. And I think it's a worthwhile one. Now, The 3 acts of your films. We've always heard this, and for me growing up, the acts were just those weird moments in a theatrical production when the curtains would close and a new scene would begin. But there's more to them. People talk about 3, 4, 5, 6 act films, and sure, you can do that, but I still see my films, no matter what, even if there is multiple movements, that there is still 3 acts, 3 core structures of your film. Your first and third act will be the shortest, but the second act is absolutely the longest and the part where most people's films fall apart. Now, this may feel like a formula, but it's actually how we experience life. We determine a desire, whether we know we have it or not. Then we experience obstacles in the way of it. And then, if we are healthy emotionally, we'll take an audit of what we've experienced, how it's changed us, and we'll move on and redetermine our desire. That's a film, and that is life. Maybe you're a filmmaker here today. Your desire is to get better at filmmaking, and the obstacles in your way is you don't understand storytelling. So work through that obstacle. And at the end, you can ask, have I changed? Have my films grown? There's the story of your career. And I'm in the middle of it. I feel like we're all kind of in the middle of Act 2, and that's okay. You don't really ever reach Act 3 in life until you die, maybe. So breaking down these 3 acts. Act 1 is where you introduce your character. You want to establish very early on what they want. They don't need to explicitly say, I want this, but we should begin to, at the very least, get hints of their physical journey. We should understand some semblance of their goals. Every film is different, and you can absolutely take these rules I'm saying and apply them how you feel fit. But I try to push people to establish these early on so that their film has purpose, it has direction. And if you feel that your style or the world you're explaining needs more context, try that out in the edit. But you will find audiences who don't care about your subject or topic beginning to wane if they don't have a desire established early on and they don't understand that. Very simple. Is in the first 10 to 15% of your film, do we know what your character wants? You can establish this world. That's the cinematic part. That's the style. When I say story world, when I'm teaching, what I mean is, what does the film look like visually? What lenses have you chose as a filmmaker? What is your style? What is the music? This is where you, as a creative, get to put the voice that you have into the film and show your vision. Where most filmmakers fail, and what most online film schools are teaching you, is just to focus on story world. They never talk about the want that your characters have or establishing that story. Most filmmakers fail because they just care about style and don't care about the substance of their character's journey. Plant the core question in the film. That is the emotional need of your character. And if you can, in Act 1, end with something that makes the return impossible. That's classic storytelling. How is it that the person in your film has no other choice? Well, I want to tell you what happens in the C-Bum film, but there's a moment where he can't return, where he has to now move forward with his 6th title defense. And you can see with Alex Honnold, he says it out loud that he has to climb El Capitan. So now we've essentially started the film. Act 2. This is the conflict. The character pursues their goal, obstacles grow, setbacks reveal identity, and the audience must remain uncertain if the character will reach their goal. This is about 60% of your film. This is the middle section. And if you don't determine what obstacles you're going to explore, then you're going to just be shooting cool scenes, and we're going to lose interest. And your resolution, your third act, isn't going to hold much weight. Again, this applies to short films. If you're making a testimonial about a company and you want to have the person talk about that, we need to know what the customer wanted, then what obstacles had been in their way, and then how the company's product bring about resolution. And then what did that make the customer feel? That's their emotional need. Hey, I never knew how to mow my lawn properly. It always looked bad. It would be patchy, and I was jealous of what my neighbors had. Then I got this lawnmower. Thank goodness, I now have a great lawn. And what it's given me is pride in my house. And I can feel like a competent adult. That's you breaking down a testimonial for a lawnmower, but you're still using story. And then for me as a customer, I can relate to that because I know when my parents come over, I want them to think I'm a competent adult with my house. Explore the physical journey and the emotional journey, no matter what project you're making. Lastly is Act 3. This is the resolution. When I say core question, I'm usually referring to the emotional need. And so we're going to ask if the core question was answered or if it was honestly left open. If the character didn't recognize their emotional need or is going back to their addiction of needing to be great, needing to continue to pursue. This is why you actually see so many athletes never retire, is they still need that desire to be seen as the best. Your character has kind of three options at the end of the film. Your character will either reach their goal and be changed, they'll fail to reach their goal, or sometimes both can happen. They can reach their goal, but they realize it failed to give them their emotional need. We just need to see the cost of the journey. We need to explore how our character feels and how they've changed from the beginning of the film. That's what's exciting, is hearing change in someone's life. Or as I explained sometimes, the tragedy of no change. I made a short documentary years ago on my YouTube channel that you can check out called Mile by Mile. We established that Lawrence, he's an older Canadian individual who wanted to become the first Canadian on a motorbike to complete the Dakar Rally. There's our character's want. The conflict, as well, the Dakar Rally, especially back in the day, was brutal. And his bike stops working. There's hot weather. You get lost because you're just using a paper map. He realizes that this might be more challenging than he ever expected. There's uncertainty if he's actually going to complete this. And then there's resolution. He finally gets across the finish line. And what he realized at the beginning was, well, he tried to do this all in his own effort, but it was the charity and kindness of individuals around him that actually got him across the finish line. The irony of making a film about a very individualistic pursuit of riding a motorbike, there's just one person on that bike, became a film about having to rely on others. That was Lawrence's emotional journey, because his physical journey, well, he crossed the finish line. So when you're making your film, when you're getting out your Millinote to write down the scenes you want to film, this is why this is so important, because this is going to determine what you actually film, how we see the story unfold. We say we don't want to hear people telling their story. We want to see it happen. So take these 3 acts and ask yourself, have I actually decided to create scenes, shoot moments, and ask questions that will move through this structure? Ask yourself before you go to film, have I explored and established the goal or the want of my person? If you haven't, you may need to do some more pre-interviews or be hyper vigilant while you're beginning to film to discover that early on. Because if you can't identify that as a filmmaker, you're going to be making an aimless film. Secondly, while you're filming, ask yourself, have I explored and depicted the obstacles that are facing my character? Have I actually captured this on film? You'll see with Mile by Mile, the events already happened. So I had to get creative by filming Lawrence in modern day, just shooting overly styled, super slow motion 60 frames. I look back at it and I'm like, but it was showing, or at least it was using the power of metaphor to explore Lawrence's struggles. Have I depicted those obstacles? Have I shown that? I mean, heck, we showed people that weren't Lawrence throwing their helmet down in the film, and this depict that frustration of not being able to finish the race at the time. Then Act 3, ask yourself, when you're doing your final interview with your character, or if you're only doing one, have I explored their emotional journey? Have I asked them not only just questions of, hey, what happened in your life, but ask them questions of, how did it make you feel? How did you grow? How are you becoming a new person? If you want more answers to these questions, we actually have an interview guide we've put together for Art of Documentary. I'll put a link down below. You can get that for free. This is a free resource we give out. But better yet, if you're part of our Documentary Foundations or Advanced Documentary course, we go into depth of not only what questions to ask your characters, but how to ask them, how to build those relationships, and help you problem solve to get the most interesting character out of your film, and also how to make that person not just feel like they're a ploy, or rather a cog in the middle of this machine you're making of a film. We want to treat people like real people, and we don't just want to extract their story out. And this requires nuance in being a smart filmmaker. And this is exactly what we teach in AOD. So coming back to where most films fail, they don't have tension, which means they don't have attention. They don't have uncertainty, which is what I say, uncertainty is currency. And that currency buys back our audience's attention. Why these actually work is they attach to a core part of us that makes us human. And that's, we want to know the unknown. Why did Adam and Eve eat the fruit off the one dang tree in the entire garden? Well, they wanted to know. We want to go to the mystery box. It's why in all horror films, people always seem to go to the basement when it's dark. I don't get why, but we're curious. We want to know. So for you as a filmmaker, use that to your advantage. Don't reveal all the information in your film at once. Even go into a timeline and talk about different things about your character, interesting aspects about them, and reveal those as you go. Don't just try to stuff that all in the first act, because we'll never get the film started. And lastly, when you're in post-production, when you've begun editing, ask these 3 questions. Screen grab this right now and put this on a sticky note or printout or somewhere on your computer and discuss it with your team. Look at your project and ask these. Does every scene earn its place? Each scene in your film must advance the physical journey or deepen the emotional one. Or you're allowed to build the story world, as I said. There's times where you just want to add a little style in, and this is okay. This is enjoyable. It's what I say is the exception of entertainment. Or having some humor to break up a film, that's okay. There's moments in my films, like I think of the ASD band film. Ron's telling knock-knock jokes before they're going up on stage. It's not really progressing the plot, but I'll argue that it's important because, man, it's funny. Ron is an incredibly humorous individual, and so having that in the film gives people a rush. Laughter is a dopamine hit, and that also helps people pay attention. It's why we'll watch really poorly told stories that are comedies, because we enjoy laughing. It's why you could sit down and watch a comedy special, because there isn't necessarily a story being told, although some people are getting into that. You think of Andrew Santino told the whole story of his pregnancy journey with his wife. That's kind of where some comics are going now. But laughter or style can be introduced intermittently. But if you're doing that too much, and this is where I like to go to Milanote and begin marking my scenes and ranking them based, are they style, are they physical journey, are they emotional journey? And if you're just doing style, if your whole film style, do it once in a while, create a style shoot if you want, but that's what your demo reel's for, is to show your style. Your films are to tell a story. If your scene doesn't advance the physical, emotional journey or establish the story world, cut it, no matter how good you think it is. Next, is your audience uncertain long enough? Now, I'm starting to sound like I'm repeating myself, but I want to give you a little hack. Take your timeline and mark down where we know how your film ends. The idea, if we know your character is going to be successful at their goal. If that moment doesn't come as late as possible in the film, if it arrives too early, the film loses its grips. We begin to not care. You need to restructure your film to protect the tension. Like that story I told when I was consulting that other filmmaker about their feature film. They revealed that their main character said, "Oh, I realized I can do my craft in front of just a small crowd. It doesn't have to be sold out stadiums in order for me to feel successful." They put that in the first minute of the film. That needed to come at the end. So if they were to look at that, they could put that little triangle in their timeline in the first minute of a 60-minute film and realize, nope, that needs to come around minute 50 or later. Lastly, does the ending answer the film's core question? Come back to your character's emotional journey, what they need. Or if you're making a topic-based film, what is that question we asked early on? Does the final sequence of your film answer it, even if it's ambiguous, even if it says we don't know the answer? If the film ends and the question is simply forgotten, the ending just feels empty. It just feels like footage. We're not here just to place cool shots in a timeline. We're here to be smart about what we're saying. We're here to show that life is emphatically centered around one thing, and that's desire. That is what pushes all things in life. Whether we know it or not, we all have desires, and they cause us to have physical journeys through space and time as we pursue an emotional one. That is life. That is why there's conflict, is sometimes our emotional journeys don't align with others. Sometimes our physical journeys actually run into each other. You look at countries warring over resources. Their physical journeys have brought them both to fight over land. But there's usually an emotional journey behind that. And that's why conflict, whether it be physical war or between a spouse and their loved one, is complicated and goes on for long periods of time. Until we can identify our emotional journeys, we won't ever understand each other. Until you identify that as a storyteller, your film just won't be interesting. It'll be vague, it'll be styled, and it just won't land. Now, I love films like Koyaanisqatsi. That is what actually drew me first into filmmaking. And you go watch that film and you'll say, well, none of these actually apply. And perhaps at a first glance, you may feel that. But the more you explore even films that have extreme style, like Petropolis, think I'm pronouncing that right. It was a film about the oil sands in Canada. Those films still have questions. And although they may not verbalize them, although they may feel ethereal and vague in the beginning of the film still does produce that. And I guarantee you those filmmakers, whether they had that written down, they knew it in their mind, and that's what they were pursuing. They, as a filmmaker, were exploring a question. Koyaanisqatsi means life out of balance. And it's exploring how, as humans, we are interacting with this world. And what is it producing? Is it producing joy? Is it producing chaos? Is it producing connection? Is it producing us to be more independent and less understanding of each other? I love that film because I kept asking questions. I became the main character. I was exploring those. And man, it really did inspire me to want to become a filmmaker. So if you want to learn more about storytelling, this is just a small glimpse of what you'll be getting inside the Art of Documentary. This lesson I took today is part of our Documentary Foundations course. And there's over 70 videos in that one course alone. We explore how to find that idea, how to do pre-production, how to shoot it, how to edit it, and how to release a successful story. There's even courses in Art of Documentary, like our one, Perfect Cut, which takes you through the entire story of a documentary being made. You get to sit alongside Lewis Gordon as if you're his assistant editor and watch him take a hard drive full of footage and wrestle through these questions to create an amazing film that you can go watch on our YouTube right now. I think it's nearly at 1 million views. It's over on the Art of Documentary page. I'll actually put a link to that down below. And the doors are open for Art of Documentary right now. And there's just a few seats left in our courses. People have been joining quick and we only have limited space each time we open the doors. The next time we'll be opening the doors probably won't be till about September. So now's your chance to join. It's a community of thousands of filmmakers from all around the world, and you can look at any of our reviews. The content, the community, and the feedback has been career changing for so many people. It's been an absolute honor to get to run Art of Documentary and to meet so many of you from around the world. Heck, I got to schedule hangouts with you on my honeymoon, and that was one of the highlights. It was so fun to get to see all of you. I so appreciate you watching this video if you made it this far. If you have, leave me the film camera. I would love to know that you are passionate about storytelling as I am. And go out there and make your film. And if you're a school teacher and you're showing this to your class, thank you. To your students, your storytellers, you have a voice. You can make impactful films that will have a purpose and will bring about change, whether it be in your community or the world abroad. Thank you for this channel. Always appreciate your support. I'll see you in the next one, and I'll see you inside Art of Documentary.